We've been working through this series in Ecclesiastes, and believe it or not, this is the last week. Now, I don't want you to think I just got tired and I'm going to wrap it all up, because we're going to cover like a chapter and a half. But really, I think the way it's structured, it's best, and it's been an interesting series, because I think Ecclesiastes was the perfect pandemic series. Because it talks about sometimes life is hard. And there's rough things that come in life. And today we're going to talk a little bit about being young and old. Now, some of you, this is going to be a stretch. Some of you are closer to this age. Like, remember being like 15? Some of you do. I knew some of you at 15. But remember at 15, like, people that were like 40 seemed really old. And then suddenly you find yourself being 40. But then you're 40, and then, some of us still look like we're 14. But some of us, we hit 40, and we think, well, people who are like 80-year-olds, and then suddenly, though, you find yourself quickly there. And sort of life kind of goes along quickly. And so Solomon today is talking about both being young and being old. And there's nowhere in the middle, but we're all somewhere maybe in the middle, or we're done. One or the other. But it's talking about the whole series in Ecclesiastes. It talks about life is best enjoyed when we know our Creator. Life under the sun is hard. It brings some hard things to us. But when we know who God is, when we have Him in our life, life is best, enjoyed. And so today is sort of the final episode. I was thinking of that, like a TV show you've been watching for a while, and the final episode comes along. And so today is the final episode. We're going to wrap up. Now, Ecclesiastes, we're going to start in chapter 11, verse 7. It says, "Life is, let us read how pleasant to see a new day dawning." Now, who here's a morning person? Who here's an evening person? Maybe you're not as excited about that new day dawning. Anyone? I think it's funny because right now we have a skylight in our bedroom. We finally boarded up, but we had a blue tarp skylight because when a tree hit it, we ended up with a skylight. But definitely now that we don't have trees, when the sun comes up, you can definitely, the house is lit up a lot more than before. We used to be, you went on Google Maps for a house before, you couldn't see the house, you just had to trust it was there. Now you'll see a house, you won't see any trees. But some people are not morning people, but really, life is a gift. Days are to be enjoyed. And so whether your morning is light in the morning or light in the afternoon when you'd rather get up, it's this enjoyable thing. And verse 8 says, "When people live to be very old, let them rejoice in every day of life. But let them also remember there will be many dark days. Everything still to come is meaningless." Now, again, this word meaningless is a little hard to translate, because if you don't understand what the word really means, the whole book of Ecclesiastes seems sort of hopeless. But the word meaningless can be translated a couple different ways. We talked about this from the beginning. It's more like breath, vapor, temporary. Because ultimately, it just slips away, right? Now, some of you who are 15, maybe it seems like life's kind of chugging along and there's plenty of time left. But suddenly you're 40 or older, and life has kind of slipped by a little bit more, right? And those of us who are even older than that, 45, life is kind of going by quickly. I was having dinner with a friend the other night, because my whole life right now centers around, well, you guys, of course, but the rest of it centers around trying to rebuild our house as we're starting to look, because it's all the destruction is about done, and so we're looking at construction. And so we sat down over dinner and kind of we're making sort of the master plan about how we're going to do things like get rid of the skylight, how we're going to do things like have a roof that doesn't leak, all these fun things that we normally enjoy all the time, but I don't have right now, because I have a roof that leaks. I just call it a water feature. It's beautiful, it's pretty. I was having dinner with a friend, and their 2-year-old was there, And I was just like, oh my gosh, because not that I don't see their 2-year-old all the time, but like, he's, mesmerized by stuff that's going on and everything, and he's just a lot of fun to play with. And I'm like, man, like my kids were this not that long ago. And now my kids drive themselves, well, one of them drives to church, the other rides with them. And it's like this, suddenly, my kid went from being 2-year-old and, playing with cars to, 16 and driving a car. And I look back, I think about, the years and years before we had kids. We got married, we didn't have kids right away. And it's like, even just having kids seemed like, so, I don't know. And life has kind of gone quickly. And some of us, we talked, our reunion got postponed. I don't know if you saw that. Some of us who graduated together in high school. And it was like, I'm not going to tell you the number, but it's, 30. But, it's like you're suddenly like, old people go to their 30th reunion. I don't go to my 30th reunion, right? Like, everyone can get amen. But it's suddenly, life kind of slips by. And I know, for those of you who are younger, it's hard to imagine, but I think those of us who are getting older, we kind of picture this. But verse 9 says, young people, it's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. And the young people said amen. Do everything you want to do, take it all in, but remember that you must give an account to God for everything you do. So enjoy every minute. Life is sweet. We can enjoy life. We said this a few weeks ago, but I love the quote. Some Christians, I'm not sure who said it originally, but some Christians act like they were baptized in vinegar. Anyone know someone like that? Man, I'm on the internet sometimes. There's like little debates going on. Christians are like, some of them are just like, no fun. Like, maybe they're the ones on the internet. I don't know. But they have this interweb thing. It's pretty cool. You should get on it. No. We have the greatest information available ever in thousands of years of human history, available on our phone. We use it mostly to, look at memes and argue with people we don't know. But some Christians act like they're baptized in vinegar. There's no fun, no laughter. They're more serious than Jesus. And we talked about this. There's humor sometimes in the New Testament. We don't always get. And I got a text not long ago from somebody. They're like, "I forgive you for being funny." I said, and I text back, "I forgive you for not having a sense of humor." No, I didn't. But there's times when there's times when you answer a fool with their folly, and there's times when you walk away. And I get. But sometimes people don't laugh. And I have been criticized because I'm not serious. I'm very serious about life, but I also enjoy it. In fact, I think I enjoy life more now that I'm a believer and follower of Jesus because I got my priorities straight. I know whose I am. I know what life's about, and so I can enjoy the things that come. I enjoy time with my family. I enjoy time with friends. I laugh at jokes. You can make funny dad jokes, and you can even have dad jokes that aren't funny, and you're still a dad, right? But I love it. It's not a sin to laugh. Life is meant to be enjoyed. So enjoy. But, remember that you must give an account to God for everything you do. And sometimes when you're young, hear this, you don't think about that giving account for what you're doing, right? Now you're all punching each other. Now it got awkward up in here. But sometimes, we forget that ultimately this life is temporary, and we are going to have to give an account for what we do. Hebrews 9:27 says, just as each person is destined to die once, and after that comes judgment. I remember the YOLO thing? Yeah, there was a YOLO. Well, it's YOLO, so you better get it right. You only live once. And so, even though life is meant to be enjoyed, it's meant to be enjoyed within constraints. Now, the thing I like, that I think about when I think about, constraints, if you will, is cars. We had a little thing happen called a tornado, and so we've been thinking a lot about cars because, they're gone. We never found them. We don't know where they landed. So if you find a super, no, we found them, but they look pretty rough. But when you think about your car, anyone here have a car? Okay. Most of you probably drove here, walked, But you have a car, and what do you do to care for a car? Some of you know this because you do auto parts stuff, or, anyone? What's one of the big things? Change the oil. What happens if you don't change the oil? You have to change the engine, right? Because there's this way to live, and that's kind of how life is. We're supposed to enjoy it, like you can enjoy driving a car, but you have to do things the right way. And God's given us this way to live, not because he's being mean, not because God doesn't like us. Jesus said, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I come to have life and have it to the full. And when you live your life in Christ, and living the way God's called you to live, it's a better life. It doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, because, sometimes it is hard, right? But life is better. It says this, verse 10. So refuse to worry, keep your body healthy. That's another one. But remember that youth with a whole life before you is meaningless. And again, temporary. It's a vapor. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. Not that it's without meaning, but it slips away. Now, verse 12, chapter 12, verse 1. The chapters weren't originally in there. We put them in there to find things. So, but 12 says this. Don't let the excitement of youth cause you to forget your Creator. Honor him in your youth before you grow old and say, life is not pleasant anymore. This is funny because we're entering a section here where it talks a little bit about old age. Because old age is not a new thing. People have been getting old for a long time. I remember reading this years ago. I didn't get it as much. I understand this passage a little more. Because, life's not going. Remember him before the light of the sun, the moon, the stars is dim in your old eyes, and rain clouds continually darken in your sky. Again, this is imagery. There will always be exceptions, but you know how you can tell when an old person is using a cell phone? Little trombone, right? Because, you get older, and I'm in that category now. We're trying to read stuff, and we're like, and you're changing the font. Well, you usually have to have someone younger than you change the font on your phone to make it bigger because you're not sure how to do that. You're telling Siri to do things that Siri, make my font bigger. No, I don't know, or whatever. You kind of see a little less, right? Most of us as we age, and you have perfect eyes. God bless you. Remember him before your legs, the guards of your house, start to tremble, and before your shoulders, the strong men stoop. Remember him before your teeth, your few remaining servants. That's a great image, like all your teeth falling out. Stop grinding before your eyes. The women looking through windows seeing dimly. Like everything's kind of shutting down. And it's really just painting this picture. Later in life, we lose strength. We've been splitting a lot of wood now because even though most of the destruction is gone, now we're like, we have all these trees everywhere. We might as well, make next year's firewood. And if anyone needs firewood, reach out to me. I got wood. If you would like to come and get it. I had to work that in. We lose strength. Our knees stop working right. I'm underneath the house doing something yesterday, and my knees no longer work like they used to. I'm like army rolling. I don't know if that thing, like army crawl and then army rolling. I'm just kind of rolling under my head. I was very dirty when I got out, but it's just I can't get on my knees anymore. Things don't work. Teeth start to go. This morning I was on Facebook, because I was praying for all of you who post. No. But anyone here about my age remember like Paula Abdul? Okay, a couple of you. This isn't about her, professional career or anything. But if you grew up in the 80s, you kind of knew who she was, right? Well, this morning I saw her doing an ad for arthritis cream. Yes. A couple of you get it. Nothing makes you feel older than someone of your generation-ish suddenly doing the arthritis commercial. That's not the worst thing. I can tell you that cream works. Anyway, this is not a commercial for that, but our bodies age, right? And if you're fortunate enough to live long enough, things don't work like they used to. Remember him before the door to life's opportunities is closed and the sound of work fades. You rise at the first chirping of the birds, that all their sounds will grow faint. You can't sleep. You also can't hear. You guys, I said you can't hear. No. These things happen. This is a picture of it all. Remember him before you become fearful of falling. I followed him, he can't get up. And worry about danger in the streets. You get older and you start kind of worrying about going out, different things. Anyone, you're young, you don't think anything. You just go wherever. You're like, I've been to some neighborhoods that, in retrospect, I probably should not have been in. When we lived in LA, we didn't know the neighborhoods yet. We went someplace and it was, you realize after a while you weren't supposed to be there. But you're young, you don't think about it. Now I'm not even getting out of the car. Before your hair turns white like an almond tree in bloom. Almond trees actually bloom with white stuff. And you drag along without energy like a dying grasshopper. I love that image. I mean, it's a terrible image. Like your body's just falling apart. You're just like this insect on the floor. There you go. Welcome to deep water. The caperberry no longer inspires sexual desire. That'd be like the oysters of the day. And remember him before you're near the grave, your everlasting home, and the mourners will weep at your funeral. I mean, how many of you felt like a dying grasshopper this morning getting up? We had a wedding here last night, and I'm getting older. I'm just going to say that because, by the time we got the sanctuary back in order and everything, and we went to the reception and getting home, and I wedding food is good food, so I ate more than I needed to. I was tired this morning, and so it's this image of the fact that we get older, it gets harder. Some of you don't remember, some of you, your alarm clock goes off, you're young. Well, you may kind of rumble down because you're like, I don't want to get up. But you could get up if it was for something you wanted to. You get older, you wake up, you have to kind of get yourself adjusted a little. You get up to the edge of the bed, but you're not getting out of the bed. Some of you know what I mean? It takes, you're pointing at it because y'all young still. You don't get it. There's this process of getting up. But it's harder. And it says here, before the silver cord of life snaps, the golden bowl is broken. Don't wait until the water jar is smashed at the spring and the pulley is broken at the well. Which is tough imagery, basically, kind of like, you get well in the water before everything just stops working. For the dust will return to the earth and the spirit will return to God who gave it. The dust will return to the earth. Death rate is currently, does anybody know? 100%. If you're born, and you're born? Okay, half of you were born. That's good. I didn't say born again. We can talk about that. But you're born. Just see if you're listening. Some of you are struggling this morning, man. Labor Day weekend. We're not trying to get into labor here. But it's you're born, you die. Now, a lot of people don't like talking about that, right? We don't want to talk about death. If we don't talk about it, maybe it won't happen. And we kind of grew up in a strange way in our house. I've told you before. We always just talk about death. The fact that we're going to die. Not in a creepy, we're sad all the time way, but we know that, eventually everyone moves on. And so, and the spirit will return to the God who gave it. And so, this life is temporary. Our bodies age. Things don't work like they used to. You stop growing hair on top. You start growing out of your ears. It's a weird time. For many, it's like 4 p.m. dinner. It's like, the early bird special. Some of you are laughing. I remember this Seinfeld episode. But anyway, and then how you react to plans change, right? When you're young and someone calls and they want to do something, you're up and at it, right? Yeah, let's go. Let's drive to New York City tonight. That sounds like a great idea. When you get a little older, you're happier when the plans get canceled. I can stay home now. When you get older, you just don't like to do late things. How you drive changes. I saw a couple of memes this week that cracked me up because it kind of fit the theme. 1 minute you're young and fun, and the next you're turning down the stereo in your car to see better. Anyone do that? You're like, I need to find the street, and you're turning down your somehow your eyes are connected to the, but it's probably just a distraction. And then ultimately we die. But God is good, so we all grow old die young. But many of us in America, I think we fear growing old, right? And we keep the plastic surgeons busy. We do all these things to kind of hide from being older. I told you one time it was awkward, weird. Like it was the first time it happened to me, and I'm sure it's going to happen again. And but I walked into Taco Bell. Elle and I were there, and we placed our order, and the cashier looks at me and goes, "I'll get you the senior discount." I don't know where the senior discount starts at Taco Bell, but I took it that day because I was both insulted and happy that I got that discount. But I was like, if you can insult me, I'll take the discount, I guess. But we don't like to feel like we're getting older sometimes, but suddenly we are. And it's this natural part of life. And I think for many of us, we fear growing old because we fear death. But I think death is nothing to fear when you know God. It's just the start of a new life. So remember your Creator now while you're young. I think some of that is, the older you get, the more set in your ways you become. Anyone? Like, can you admit it? Like you like things done a certain way? Some of you are young and are nodding. I don't know if you're nodding because the person next to you is set in their ways. But we kind of develop ways of doing things, and so we like doing things our way. Some young people like doing theirs too. But and if you don't develop good spiritual habits when you're younger, it's hard when you're older. And the older you get, I think the harder it is sometimes to put your faith in Christ, because you've ordered your life in a certain way, and we don't like change. We want to kind of do things. And Solomon, if you look at his life, I believe he's the author of this book, he started right. He wanted wisdom to lead God's people. But he kind of gets sidetracked, right? As like 300 wives and 700 concubines. Not God's will. And he made political alliances and did all kinds of things. He sought things. We talked about that. But he likely wasted a lot of time. And then you regret it. It's interesting. I'm speaking to the young people now. I'm a little older now. When I look back on my life, unfortunately, I remember a lot of stuff. Sometimes I think we lose our memory because we don't want to remember all the stupid stuff we did. There was another meme this week that was on a page I follow, and a friend shared it too. It said, if you can't look back at your younger self and realize that you're an idiot, you're probably still an idiot. Because there's things we do that we regret. There's things we didn't do that we regret. And ultimately, we have to give an account to God for those. And ultimately, when you're young, you may not see it, but when you're older, you'll be glad you lived that way. You'll be glad you did the right things. You'll be glad you invested in the right things. You'll be glad you followed God's will for your life. Now, it doesn't mean that when we're older we can't, get back on track. But if you're younger, trust me, you'll be glad you got on the right track early. We'll regret less if we make God our priority when we're young. Verse 8, everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. Again, not meaningless. Think of, everything is temporary. Everything is a vapor. Everything, keep this in mind. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. This is like him talking about himself. Like George likes his chicken spicy. Some of you get that Seinfeld reference. Some of you are not Seinfeld people. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. This is kind of like his resume. Like, this is why you should listen to me. And the words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. Their collected sayings are like nail-studded stick with which a shepherd drives the sheep. Sometimes truth hurts. There's some things that are true about God, there's true about the Bible, there's true about their life. And sometimes people sit down with me and ask me things, and I try to be diplomatic, but sometimes I just smack them in the face with something that's true. Because it's true. And sometimes the truth hurts. Anyone have a friend who loves you enough to tell you the truth? Sometimes it's hard, right? Because we like to think we're right. We like to do our thing. A good friend is someone who can tell you the truth, even when it's not what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear. And so truth can guide us in the right direction. Verse 12, but my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless and much study wears you out. Great verse for the students about to go back to school, right? Anyone? You know, some of you are teachers, some of you have written large works. You understand what I mean? Here, verse 15. That's the whole story. This is my final conclusion. This is like, who wants to be a millionaire? This is my final answer. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every single thing, whether good or bad. And so Solomon had looked, for in life, for he had wisdom, he had politics and power, he had pleasure, and a lot of us, we lived our lives that way. My early part of my life, I became a believer and follower of Jesus at 20. And I know to some of you that seems old. To some of you that seems really young. God bless you. But anyway, I look for it in sports, right? Because that was something I could control and do, and I played football and wrestled, did things like that. And I like to pick things up and put things down. And so I was finding my meaning in that. Not bad stuff, but really not something to base your life around, being able to pick things up and put things down. Because eventually, guess what? I can't pick up what I used to pick up. I can put it down, but I can't pick it up anymore. Academics, I was a late bloomer on that, so I was not in the contention for class rank. But I always had the highest chemistry grades. That was kind of fun because the smart people felt like, how can that idiot just beat me in chemistry? Anyway, relationships. I dated this really good-looking smart girl. Still with her. Oh, you didn't know the story. I think it's got weird up in here. And yes, we are the same age, She looks a little younger than me. That was the biggest amen I got today. But here's the thing. I look for life in all those things and find it. Life is only found in one place, in Christ. And when we really put our faith and our trust in Jesus, it reorganizes it. Now, I still did sports, as a believer, but it wasn't the center of my life. I still did academic stuff. I have a degree in chemistry, which I never ever used. But I still like other academic stuff. But it's not the center of my life. I still have the relationship, but even for some of you, I did a wedding yesterday. I love doing weddings. But it's funny because everyone expects you to say, it's all about love. It is, but it's about Jesus. And so even our life, I love my wife, but she's not the center of my world. That's like greeting card stuff that's fake. God is the center of my world, and I enjoy being married. I enjoy my family. But when you center your life on the right things, the eternal things, you can enjoy all those things. And so you can look for meaning in life and all these things, but really true life is only found in Christ. Solomon looked for life ultimately found in one place, in God. It said, fear God and obey his commands. And there's this, obey. We think fear, I think sometimes we think, be scared of, remember back in the day when we could go to amusement parks and things, and you get on rides, and they basically try to terrify you and twist your head off. The older I get, the less I feel like I want to ride a roller coaster. This body, doesn't need any more trauma than it's had. But it's not that kind of fear. But fear is this respect and awe. I always use the idea of a Rottweiler, where there's actually a giant mastiff, and anyone notices right across the street? Yeah, some of you, giant dog. That one's really gentle though. But I love giant dogs, but there's a certain level of respect, even if it's playful, even if it's loving on you. You don't want to be eaten by that giant dog. So, I love Rottweilers for that reason. It's they can be the friendliest dogs, but there's a certain level of respect, and that's the kind of fear and awe we need to have God. That God is awesome. And we have this relationship with him, this all respect, and you live differently because of it. You know, if you don't live differently because you're a believer and a follower of Jesus, then you're probably not a believer and follower of Jesus. Like, I'm not saying we don't have struggles. I'm not saying some days it's not difficult. But, you know, my life should be lived differently because I'm a follower of Jesus. It's not like, you know, I just live my life and then you add Jesus in and, you know, now I go to church on Sunday. You know, that's not it. It really, following Christ means centering your life around that and living differently. John 14:21, Jesus says this: "Those who accept my commandments and obey them," obey, we don't like that word, right? "are the ones who love me. And because they love me, my Father will love them, and I will love them and reveal myself to them." Accept my commandments and obey. We're made to live differently, you know, because of it. Now, something you should know about me is I don't cheat on my wife. I shouldn't have to say that as a pastor, but, you know, unfortunately, there's been way too many. Why do I not cheat on my wife? Number one, it's wrong biblically, right? Like, it's not, you know, that whole, like, you know, don't commit adultery thing. You know, it's in there. You know, I'll show you where it is later if you want. Two, because it would destroy the relationship I value, right? And because I love her. And because I love my wife, I live differently. It's the same with God. If you say you love God, then you have to live differently. Doesn't mean you have to be weird. Doesn't mean you have to be baptized in vinegar. Doesn't mean you have to be like someone who's no fun at a party. But I order my life differently because of who I follow. You know, relationships aren't without rules. It should change the way we live. Now, last week I talked about one of the kind of the funny things about living through a tornado is you really see some of the scriptures, in a sense, come to life. I saw a lot of things go before my eyes. I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. I didn't see my sockets go past the... Some of you don't know what that is in the house, but just trust me, stuff went this way. You learn to, like, you know, love possessions a lot less when they're swirling about you at 100 and some miles an hour. Anyway, but, you know, one of the things that we noticed is, you know, when we came outside, my house was mostly intact, except for the roof and the new skylights and things like that we had. We were up there. But I had a carport before, and some of you have been over to the house, you saw the carport. And I've been telling stories for a while about how, like, we've been converting it into a garage slowly. Now we have to pick up the base because, you know, we got to put the house back in order. But, you know, I dug down and I put, you know, 24-inch concrete footers and, you know, in there and anchored everything. And long story short, I don't think I would still have that part of my house if we hadn't put those footers in. Because before it wasn't attached that well. And the guy next door had one like I had, and we pulled it off the roof of the house one over. Because that part of his house was on top of my other friend's house. Right? And so the story, the thing we're talking about, Jesus, you know, he tells us a story about, you know, putting his words into practice, or like building your house on a good foundation versus a bad foundation. And so ordering your life around Jesus is foundational. And when you do that, your life will withstand the storms. And whether you're young or old, it's important. And we live differently because of this. Now, many of us, you know, we'll prepare for everything, right? Anyone have a test? You know, coming up, well, you're like, oh, we're about to start virtual school. You have virtual school. Some of you, like, maybe back in high school, you prepare for the test, right? You study. You work on things. Some of you don't study. You really should. But, you know, there's all these things we do generally to prepare for a test, because if we want to pass, we want to do well, right? And then some of us, you know, you're older, maybe you interview for a job. You go through, like, the interview questions, right? Like, you know, they're always like the same interview questions too. Like, what is your greatest strength? What is your weakness? Because I care so much and I work so hard. You know, because remember in interviews, they always say you turn your strength into weakness. People are getting better at asking questions like, oh, come on, get off that interview question. And many of us will prepare for retirement, right? If you need retirement, but, you know, little shout out. But, you know, we prepare for retirement, right? Like, you know, some people, man, that's all they think about. You know, they spend their whole life thinking about what I gotta be ready for retirement. I gotta have money saved away, I gotta do this, gotta do that, I'm gonna travel, I'm gonna do this. We prepare for that, right? Many of us prepare for all these things in life, but we really don't prepare for eternity. That's the only thing you can be sure of. Some of you won't retire, you'll be dead before you do it. They keep raising that Social Security age. I think I have to work till I'm 105 now. I think, is that the current age? Okay. Anyway, that's about right. You know, we'll prepare for all these other things in life, but we won't prepare for eternity. And ordering your life in the right way is critical. You know, life under the sun, you know, really it's about learning God's perspective on life so we live differently. I remember week one, I talked about this, and I love this analogy. You know, habit 2 for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which was a good book a long time ago. Begin with the end in mind. But I love this quote. If your ladder's not leaning against the right wall, every step you take gets you to the wrong place faster. You know, our ladder, our life, should lean against God. And every step we take, further and further, you know, doing His will, getting to the right place. If we're going after our own stuff, we're going to end up in the wrong place. You start with God, your life will make more sense. You have fewer regrets when you get older. Many of us spend our whole lives pursuing things, but we miss the greatest thing we're supposed to pursue. It's God. You know, everything in life is fleeting. Intellectual accomplishments. You know, I'm wired for academic stuff, and so like it's funny because I read a lot of academic literature that most people will never read. You know, and then it's interesting because I'm at the point now where the stuff I read when I was in school is kind of no longer read because it's too old. So you can be like really smart, you have a great book, nobody reads it. And 100 years nobody remembers who you are. You know, and then wealth and luxury. People spend their whole life in pursuit of it, and it's not bad to create wealth. It's not bad, you know, to have some nice things. But if that's all we spend our pursuit in life, and suddenly it's gone. For some of us, the economic crash. For some of us, the tornado. Everything's gone. No longer burdened by material possessions. Politics, man. People just straightened up, some of y'all. You know, it's interesting because, okay, we're kind of entering the political season. Which I'm not sure which I like more, the tornado season or the political season, because, you know, they're both tough. But, you know, pursuit of power will never bring satisfaction. And a lot of us, I'll be honest, I'll be frank, and not that I'm lying to you, but we're going to be disappointed in the next election, right? Because if you're at one side, you're one party, you're going to be disappointed. If you're the other party, you're going to be disappointed, right? Like election day, half of you will be happy, half of you will be mad. Half of you will delete the other half on Facebook. You know, or maybe something like that. I don't know. Because that's our threat now, right? Like, we're mad at people. I'm going to delete people. It's not the power of, like, remember when we used to be able to hang up the phone? That was like, when you're angry at someone, you could slam that phone. Now you do that, you got to buy a new phone. And it's like, it's just not as powerful. Oh, yeah? But anyway, you know, we pursue all these things. And again, I think Christians should be active in politics. I'm not saying that. But we pursue all these things, but they'll not really ever bring you satisfaction if your ladder's in the wrong place. If you're not going towards God. You know, life under the sun is hard, confusing, but ultimately it's this gift of God that prepares us for eternity. Life is preparation for eternity with Him. And we're made for eternal things. If this is new to you, if you're watching online or watching on later, we'd love to talk to you about what it is to have a relationship with God. And you know, if we try to fill it with temporary things, our life will never be